We are staying in Canberra, where we've seen quite something of a fortnight for the Nationals party room. Joining us live now is the Nationals MP, David Gillespie. Good to see you. Appreciate your time. What do you make of the push for the LNP to sit in its own party room, separate to the Nationals? It's an idea, of course, that's been floated for a long time. Your colleague Matt Canavan wouldn't rule it out on Sky a bit earlier today. Is it really something, do you think, that's gaining momentum?
Look, it's been an issue that's been floating around in the background, not just in this parliament, but parliaments before. And I personally and all my other National Party colleagues have always been very inclusive, and I was quite disappointed when Llew did make the jump. Admittedly, it didn't take me by surprise totally, but I wasn't aware that he'd done that decision on Sunday night. And we're trying to keep him obviously deeply involved in the coalition, and I've known Llew for a long time. He's a great guy. I'm confident that over time, or I have hopes that over time, I will dedicate my activities to getting him back inside the Nationals family, in the party room with the Nationals.
So you're not expecting any further defections or this idea of a separate LNP party room to go ahead?
No, Ashley, no, I'm not. Although, as I said, the arguments for it are not new. They have surfaced at other times when there's been frustrations, and the best way to address that is to address their frustrations. You know, every party has its arguments, like any family has its arguments, and sometimes it tips over and there's a breakdown in sort of allegiances. He's sticking with the LNP for now, but like I said, I'm working to make sure he stays close to us, and in due course over the coming months I hope that he will choose to return. But for now we're just focusing on all the things. Yes?
You were a supporter of Barnaby Joyce in the leadership challenge. What are your key frustrations?
Look, I was. Barnaby offered a lot of good connections with the right side of our party, and he was in the past, a very powerful advocate for all the causes that National Party supporters are concerned about, like supporting the forestry industry, like supporting agriculture, all the drought support, active supporting our people with all these various emergencies, whether it's a fire or a flood, supporting mining, energy, all the things that we count. And look, ever since the Greeks invented democracy and the Westminster system we adopted, we do have spills. There was a vacancy for Bridget's position, so the logical time to have it was then, and that's how it came to pass. And look, once the result is known, we all muck in together and we go forward with the decided leader. Just today, we've all
dined.
Well, not exactly
like David Gillespie, is it? Because, look, several days after the actual spill, it was reported that you yelled at Michael McCormack over the Deputy Speaker role, that apparently you called him a liar because he denied that he'd tapped Damien Drum for the role that you were interested in as well. Is all of that true?
Well, look, I don't really comment on internal discussions in the party room, otherwise I'd be breaking our procedure. I'm disappointed that other people don't follow that principle. But we air our differences with ourselves and we move on. And like I said, I just had lunch with Michael McCormack and other members. We do get together for a leaders' lunch, and we're all dedicated to improving the lot for regional Australia, because we do need, not just regional Australia needs sensible energy policy, but the whole country needs it. We're fighting to make sure we're delivering what we took to the election, and that is getting a
David Gillespie, but if
station.
one of Michael McCormack's team, in yourself, thinks that he's a liar, this is the Deputy Prime Minister we're talking about, isn't that in the public interest? Is Michael McCormack a liar in your view?
Look, as I said, I don't talk about things that were said in private. We argue our case about various issues in the party room, but now that is, our tiff is finished. We're focusing on going forward, keeping Llew O'Brien deeply involved in the coalition and the National Party. That's why I supported him, and I will continue to support him, and hopefully he will join, so that we
but
don't
David Gillespie,
break up
you're
our
on
great
national
party.
television saying that the tiff is over, but you can't seem to bring yourself to deny that Michael McCormack is a liar.
Look, other people have used those words. At times we get disappointed with...
well, I'm asking you because the report suggests that you've used those words, so I'm asking you now if you think the Deputy Prime Minister is a liar.
No. Over a certain matter, we had differences, but that is finished, and those words were not used. I used a different turn of phrase, and I'm disappointed that people have even mentioned this thing outside our party room.
Do you expect Barnaby Joyce will have another crack at the leadership before too long? Would you like him to?
Look, that's crystal ball. At the moment, we are all committed to prosecuting the case, to get all those sensible policies about supporting forestry, getting sensible energy policy. It is a lot of turmoil when these spills come up, but we're focusing on the job, moving forward. I've got a very big part of my electorate that's been damaged by the bushfires. I'm focusing on making sure they get all the support they need. Just earlier today, I was pleased to announce more support financially for the two largest affected councils, Mid Coast Council and Port Macquarie Hastings Council, and I've got 150 constituents that have had their houses destroyed or burnt, and we want to make sure they're getting all the support that they can. The focus of earlier in the week is now in the rear vision mirror, and we're focusing on what people put us here for, and that is to make sure
look, I think we can all agree that that's great news about those bushfire-affected families. We all will back you on that one for sure, but it isn't crystal ball gazing to ask you if you would like to see Barnaby Joyce have another crack at the leadership.
Yeah, well, look, we all have varied relationships in the building at the moment, and going forward, I am supporting our leader because we've faced that decision. It was settled at the meeting, and that is what, if you ask any member of the party, even Barnaby's been on this show saying that he is supporting the leader because the spill was conducted, he lost, he's got over it, he's exercised his rights. And we're all focusing on getting things delivered for the nation and for our constituents in particular. Lew's going to do a great job in the Speaker role, maintaining the Deputy Speaker role. He was a great policeman. He was very capable and will enforce the rules and regulations of how our Parliament runs. And as I've said before, we'll continue over the months to encourage him to return to the National Party room as the place where he chooses to sit, rather than being just more isolated by sitting in his own party room.
Speaking of rules and regulations, is there a problem with the culture of the Nationals party room when it comes to using entitlements? We've seen leaks this week about party room meetings being scheduled around events like the Melbourne Cup, a fancy Nationals gala dinner, a trip by Michael McCormack to the State of Origin match. There's a lot of dirt being flung around. Does the party room really need to look at how it's handling the use of entitlements?
Look, everyone respects those allowances. Every party has meetings around the country. We've had them in country Victoria, in country New South Wales. The issue is obviously relevant because we have got our centenary celebrations, and I'm planning to attend. Look, I didn't come into this role to get on the gravy train. I'm here to help people. I took a pay cut to come into the building like lots of my colleagues, and I've gone to many things where I've paid my own way, but we're not focusing on that. These are minor issues. We've got huge problems facing the nation.
Well, the use of taxpayer funds isn't really a minor issue, David Gillespie.
No, it isn't. It's not a minor issue, but people do have meetings, party room meetings, outside of Canberra, and it's up to the executive what they schedule. If they schedule a meeting, I will turn up. But at the moment, I'm not really putting that as a top draw issue because I am focusing on the things that really count. I mean, the rats and mice issue tend to get amplified in the current so-called, you know, our Prime Minister calls it the bubble. But what I'm trying to get everyone back onto is the big issues and unifying our party, because it is disappointing that we have got one member now sitting by himself in a one-member LMP party room. We'd love him to be back in the Nationals party room.
Just looking at one of the big issues, we've seen Barnaby Joyce and Matt Canavan have launched a podcast called Weatherboard and Iron today. They're going to be canvassing some of the things they see as the big issues for the Nationals party room going forward. Whether that'll be helpful to Michael McCormack or not, well, time will tell. It's been reported that in a party room meeting, you made the point that people in your electorate don't bring up climate change with you. The report suggests that you warned your colleagues that they shouldn't be misled by the media and what I understand you described as the green left into thinking that climate change is a bigger issue than it really was. You mentioned the bushfire efforts a bit earlier. Do you not see climate change as a real problem that needs to be addressed in the wake of the bushfires?
Yes, Ash, I do. But regards those comments, I don't know who started this verballing of things people say in meetings. The journos that mentioned all these things haven't exactly outlined any of my comments accurately. They were bundled up with comments other people have made, but I might say separately to that, when I went to many fire grounds speaking to bushfire firefighters, they weren't talking about that. They were talking about vegetation and land management, which is the topic of a standing committee on the environment and energy. The issue that they are concerned about, because practices, sure, the climate's changing, but what we do know is that in the late 80s and 90s, a lot of states changed land management practices and vegetation management. A lot of state forests were turned into national parks. The door was closed, the trails weren't maintained, and normal, regular, low-level burns were quickly extinguished, and also the architecture of planned low-level burning to clean out the forest floor, to encourage flora diversity, to prevent major crown fires where the whole forest becomes an unstoppable inferno. Once you get more than 5 tonnes of debris per hectare in the bottom of a forest and a fire starts in it, the fuel load is so large that it virtually is unstoppable, and then you get the fire and these huge, because the eucalyptus oil's exploding and the huge base of fuel for it, it gets its own life. It develops its own microclimate issues, you know, the pyrocumulonimbus clouds and those fireballs, all those things happen. Now, nature and the Indigenous used to manage that regularly by doing regular low-level burns. Foresters in my area, the northern part of my electorate is surrounded in national parks, most of which up until the early 90s were national parks. And they used to have burns there every 2 and 3 years to protect their assets. So the forests are now a lot denser than they have been for at least 30 years. And because of that, the fuel loads, when you walk through some of these national parks now, the old fire and forestry trails are all overgrown, and you've got fuel up to your waist, and it's like a dense jungle. So it is part of nature. Well, that's something the Royal Commission will be.
Yeah. We know that's something that will be examined by the Royal Commission, so we're looking forward to seeing, you know, really laid out as to what's happened in terms of the burning that's gone on for those fuel loads and how that may have contributed to what we've seen over the summer. David Gillespie, we are out of time. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you'll be happy to get back to the electorate over the next couple of weeks and escape Canberra after the week that was and the fortnight that was for the National Party Room. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks, Ash.